All right, thank you everybody for bearing with us. We got some new technology that we're trying to figure out. All right, so hello everyone. Welcome to the March meeting of the City of Planning Commission. My name is Nick Corcoran. I'm currently the chairman of this commission, which is comprised of local community members tasked with reviewing site plans and special use permits for consistency with the standards and criteria set forth in the City of Binghamton Code. Based on our total number of planning commission members, 4 members must be present to constitute a quorum. Tonight we have 6 members, which means we do have a quorum and can proceed. First item on our agenda is roll call. Mario DeFulvio. Chris Judgeats.
I was struggling to think of a wedding themed sign in, but I don't have anything, so I'm present.
All right. Kelly Weiss is absent. Manny Priest. All right. Kyle Nedlick.
Here.
And Tim Sesney.
Present.
All right. Second item on our agenda is approval of the February minutes, which were posted on Basecamp. Anybody have any issues with the meeting minutes? Anybody want to make a motion to approve? Motion by Tim. Second by Manny. All in favor? All right. 6 in favor, 0 opposed. All right. Next portion of our meeting is seeker determinations. In this portion of our meeting, the Planning Commission will be reviewing documentation provided by applicants for the first time. Applicants will be called to the microphone where they will be asked to make a presentation describing their plans to the commission. Commission members may then ask questions of the applicant to clarify any items that are unclear. After all questions have been answered, the commission will deliberate and then either set a public hearing date for the project or request additional information before proceeding. To all applicants that will be presenting tonight, we ask that you please state your name and address for our records before beginning your presentation, and ask that any member of your team who will be speaking please give their name and address for our public record. Tonight, our first seeker determination is for the applicant Weed Eater International LLC. Project address is 2 Jackson Street. This is a site plan review and special use permit for the establishment of an industrial cannabis business, adult use micro business in the I-2 light and medium industrial district. All right, and as you guys are starting your presentation, the new technology requires you to speak very clearly and loudly into the microphone, and you really have to be kind of close to that microphone for it to pick you up.
Just unmuted. My name is Don Yurkiv. I'm a Binghamton native and will be operating out of 2 Jackson Street in Binghamton.
My name is Weston Lampier, also Binghamton native, operating out of 2 Jackson Street.
Good evening. My name is Walter Porras. I'll be operating out of 2 Jackson Street as well.
All right.
Okay, so brief introduction, I guess. Our company, Weed Eater, is one of the first issued OCM cannabis micro business licenses in the state. And as far as I know, one of the very few with actual location and thing to start building out. A quick overview of the micro business license in case anyone isn't familiar. It basically allows us to do retail, cultivation, distribution, and processing of cannabis. And we intend to use it primarily for cultivation with some low scale processing, and pending the committee's approval, also a small retail location. We're currently under contract with 2 Jackson Street and looking at closing and hopefully starting a build out sometime in April, of course, pending an approval of our special permit. We have our build out broken down into 3 phases, which I believe is what the documents that we submitted. The only thing changing with those 3 phases would be the floor plan, with the first one being a smaller cultivation, the second one of the final build out of the whole facility for cultivation, and the third phase basically just being retail, a small retail in the front of the building.
All right. Questions, comments? Chris?
Can you go into the time frame for the 3 phases? Like how much of a gap are we looking at between phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3?
Sure. So as it stands right now, pending approval of the permit and pending our closing date in April, we expect to be operating as a cannabis cultivator within 2 to 3 months. It's going to take a little bit of back and forth with the OCM. They have to do some inspections and obviously make sure we're compliant with them. But it'll be something probably by summer, 2 to 3 months, we expect to be starting our operation of cultivation. They'll further build out. We also expect to be done probably sometime this year. And then retail is, I mean, we still have questions a little bit for code and obviously the fire marshal, what they like to see in terms of retail space there, any questions we might have to resolve with them. But we fully expect to be maxed out within the year that's allotted under the special permit.
All right. Could you describe, so once it's open for retail, can you describe the process of somebody coming to the site from the time they park somewhere to when they leave?
Sure. So the OCM is pretty strict as far as security regulations goes. As of right now, I believe we intend to have a security contractor to greet and check IDs at the gate. Obviously, nobody's even getting through the door if they're under 21. Any exterior branding will be plain. OCM strictly prohibits anything with images or visuals. And they just basically our name and any required warnings that we have to have listed. Any branding and advertisement will be inside. Once you're inside, you go in, it's not going to be a very large retail location. So it's not going to be a place where customers will spend a significant amount of time. We expect them to go make their selections, pay and leave probably 10, 15 minutes, no different than a liquor store of coming in, buying what you need and getting out.
Okay. Chris, yeah.
Parking questions. So I'm looking at the revised site plan that was submitted,
Yep.
and I'm seeing what appears to be only one parking space that's marked with a plus EV electrical vehicle charger. Is that the only parking you're providing on your site?
So initially, we had planned to offer more parking, but after our pre-development meeting, we found out because the building is 6,500 square feet, the 4,000 square feet that's allotted by planning, we were told we only need one parking space provided, as there's also pretty ample street parking on that dead end street. So it is compliant with what we need to do. Yeah, as you can see, we don't have a ton of space to work with. I think as of right now, if you go by the building, all of the parking is technically parked on the curb, even though there is no curb. All of the current vehicles parked there on the road. So what we have proposed is an improvement over what it is right now. But if the committee would require more parking spaces, then we could go back to something more similar to the initial draft and provide a couple more spaces.
Okay. Tito, a question for you. Does this revised site plan address questions that staff had raised in the staff report? Are there still, like, for example, I'm not seeing a handicap parking spot. I'm not sure what's required or not required.
They do need a handicap parking space. The initial site plan they submitted had several non-compliant parking spaces, some that were overlapping the property lines. All of them had to back out onto the street. So we advised them, since they only need one space, to put one compliant space on the plan, and that's what they attempted to do. It does have to be handicap parking, though.
You guys be willing to, before the next meeting, do a version 3.0 of the plan that clearly labels that as a handicap spot?
Yeah, we can change that to a handicap spot for sure.
If you do that, can you make sure you read the code about what's required for a handicap spot? Because you need an unloading zone next to the handicap spot, and you're tight in there. It's got to be within your property line. So you need the parking space and an unloading zone.
Okay, if needed, we could also look at having that to the west of the building. We can move that fence back a little bit. We won't really have a big need of having vehicles back there, so we could block that off with parking if it was necessary.
Okay.
Could you go into the floor plan a little bit and just describe what's on the first floor, what would be on the second floor?
Sure.
Please.
So the floor plan that we have there is preliminary because we are still under, we haven't closed on the building yet, so we don't have exact measurements or architectural measurements or anything. The warehouse as it is exactly that. It's basically just a warehouse. So there isn't gonna be really a second floor anywhere in the southern warehouse area or in the western garage area. It's all gonna be 12-foot, 14-foot ceilings. The only part that's gonna be a second story, as of right now with the plan we have, is to have a mezzanine type structure. On the right side where it says newts and dry trim, there's gonna be a set of stairs and a small mezzanine area for trimming and for storing nutrients as required by the OCM. The only part of the structure that's gonna have a real second story is the front, where the retail location is, and the second story will probably be just offices or, you know, some sort of internal use thing. The only thing open to customers would be the lower portion in the front.
For some of the flower areas, will there be measures put in place to mitigate any odors you might be exhausting from the building?
Yeah, so the standard for the industry is using carbon filtration, which is what we intend to do. We're probably gonna end up putting it in the retail space as well, just to fully mitigate any issues with odors. At the end of the day, this is gonna be an indoor grow, so it should have very little impact to the outside. And actually, it's in our interest to do that because we want to keep it as sterile as possible, and we want to have basically full control of what we're putting in, because that's going to also kind of dictate the level of product that we're producing. So we're going to try and keep it as clean as possible. We'll have environmental controls as far as humidity, temperature go, and we should be keeping pretty good track of what the air is inside and out of the grow spaces.
All right. Any other questions, concerns? All right. When you're looking at the parking layout, just make sure there are some requirements for size of drive lanes, size of parking spaces. They're in the Binghamton code. Just make sure you look at that so that you have got enough room for a car to pull in, back out, and it meets the code requirements. It's not going to affect yes or no, but are you nervous about your location on Jackson Street at all? It's not the best retail location.
So retail wise, I think that the retail is kind of a bonus for us. Really the main driver of this business is gonna be the cultivation part. And I think that Jackson's a perfect place for that. It's quiet road, dead end. And it's already kind of set up. All the neighbors are basically doing industrial stuff as well. So that's gonna be our main driver. Retail is kind of just a bonus. We do have some projections for it. But you know, we'll see how far that goes.
Okay. I think we're going to swap out your microphone. It's cutting in and out. But all right, excellent answer for that. All right, and the staff report notes that your project is not located within 500 feet of a school, nor 200 feet of a place of worship. So I guess that's a requirement for the OCM. All right, and everything else I think we talked about. All right, if there's no other questions, comments, I'll make a motion that the proposal involves the reuse of an existing commercial building, which is a type 2 action under seeker, and that no further environmental review is required. Seconded by Chris, all in favor? All right, 6 in favor, 0 opposed. And I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing for the project at 5:20 at our April meeting. Seconded by Manny, all in favor? 6 in favor, 0 opposed. All right, so we'll see you back in April, and we'll have a public hearing, see if anybody comes out to talk about your project.
All right, see you guys in a month. Thank you
All
for the time.
Thank you. Gotcha.
Much as he denies no one meeting.
All right, so for the record, Mario is recusing himself from the next project because he is related to the applicant. All right, so now we're on to public hearings. In this portion of our meeting, we will be holding open public hearings to obtain public opinion in regard to specific projects that are up for review. Applicants will be asked to come to the microphone and make a brief presentation describing their project. For most projects, this is the second time we were reviewing your information, so it would be very helpful if you could please give us a brief overview of the project to remind us what you're planning, and then clearly identify any changes that have been made since the last time we saw you. When the applicant is done presenting and any clarifications have been reviewed, we will open the public hearing and allow members of the community to speak about the applicant's proposal. After the commission has heard from all community members interested in speaking tonight, the public hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate. To our applicants, when your project name is called, please come to the microphone and start off by giving the name and address of any member of the applicant's team that's planning to speak. And to anyone from the community that will be speaking in regard to a project tonight, please also start off by stating your name and address for our records. All right, so tonight, our first public hearing is for the applicant Kearney Realty and Development Group. Project address is 162 Henry Street, 180 Henry Street, 206 to 210 Henry Street. And this is a site plan modification for the construction of a mixed-use building with 65 dwelling units and 4,300 square feet of commercial space, as well as 2 ancillary parking areas in the C1 Service Commercial District and R2 1 and 2 Unit Dwelling District. Welcome.
Evening, Dominic Emilio. I'm with CPL. We're the engineer for the applicant. My office address is 4100 Vestal Road, Vestal, New York. Nick did a pretty good job of summarizing what's going on. You guys have all seen this several times now. No real changes since last month to the plans, though several things were brought up, or a handful of things were brought up that, you know, we've gone on record saying will be done. One is a URP, or urban runoff reduction plan, for both lots, to be clear. The lots at 206 to 210 Henry Street will be combined into one parcel when the time is right. And all of the parcels for the building, there's 4 parcels there as well. They will be combined into a single parcel when the time is right. And then the last thing was privacy fence along the south property line for the 206 to 210 Henry Street lots. The one item I had as an update since last month was somebody on the board asked about an update regarding the funding process. They expect to hear about this current round of funding by the end of this month, by the end of March. If they are successful this round with New York State, they plan to start construction this summer. If they're not successful, they'll try again next year and expect a decision next winter. So fingers crossed for this and other housing projects that are up for vote in Binghamton. So happy to answer any other questions.
All right. All right. Any questions before we open the public hearing? All right. Seeing no questions, we'll open the public hearing. If anybody's here to speak about the project at 162 Henry Street, 180 Henry Street, or 206 to 2 Henry Street, please come to the microphone.
Some
Well-
general questions I'd like about the project. Eric Leonard, 81 Pine Street.
All right, before you start, I just want to make sure, direct your questions to us.
Okay.
We don't want you to get into a dialogue with the applicant.
That's
but-
fine.
And then we'll ask,
Sure.
when you're done, we'll ask him any questions that are relevant to our site plan review.
Sure. How many
Okay.
parking spots are being added in this proposal?
All right.
What? Okay. And then is the plan to still put the dumpsters and waste heat exhaust on Pine Street? Or has there been any progress on moving that to Chapman? I know last time that was discussed, there were issues about curb cuts. I was curious if any of that's been resolved.
All right. All right, thank you. All right, anybody else who would like to speak about the project? All right, Tito, and we did not receive any letters from anybody? We did not receive any letters. All right, seeing nobody else approaching the microphone, we'll close the public hearing for the project. Dominic, if you could come back up. Just a couple of questions.
Sure. So regarding parking, we discussed last week, we're adding, let me refresh my memory on the exact count. I think it's around 31 spaces on Henry Street. 10 of those are at the 162 lot and 21 of those are at the 206 through 210. The parking lot that was added since the last site plan approval a couple of years ago. And then as far as garbage, same as 2022, the DOT will not allow any curb cuts, any access from Chapman Street. That's their right away. And we did explore that back then, and nothing as far as the building itself and those 4 parcels has changed from our original approval. The change here had to do with the new parking lot and the changes in zoning. But nothing on the plan has changed. I'm sorry, we did, so. Yeah, the garbage was moved inside though. That was done in 2022. So there is a garbage space on the first floor, which is quasi basement. And if you look on the plan on the east side of the building, you'll see a kind of an access door about halfway down the building on the east side with access out to the street. So there's going to be interior garbage, and it'll be rolled out to the street on a weekly basis. So the area that was previously a dumpster enclosure on Pine Street was kind of repurposed as a patio.
So the garbage will now go out to Henry?
Yes.
I'm sorry, from your 2022 proposal, that's 31 additional spaces that you've added? Just to clarify that.
No, in 2022, we had 10 spaces at the western Henry Street lot, closer to, I'll say closer to Dorenzo's, a smaller lot. They were always there. There was an additional, because zoning was different, we got a variance for part of the requirement, and then the remainder, I think it was about 50% variance we got, if I remember correctly. We had a memo of understanding in place with the Rumble Ponies for 30 spaces in their lot.
Okay.
But with the zoning changes that were adopted last year, those were no longer needed. It wasn't an ideal situation with the Rumble Ponies. They were willing to do it, but there were concerns with, game days. And on the other hand, the city did come up with these other 4 parcels that they offered to the developer.
Okay. So your original proposal had 10 and now you're jumping to 31. So
You could
gaining
argue it
21?
had 40 with the lease spaces. That was kind of the intent
Okay.
with the Rumble Pony spaces.
So excluding the Rumble Pony
Yes.
spaces though,
We are,
that's what you have.
yep, we
Okay.
were building 10 and now we're building 31.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, and Dominic, who takes the garbage out?
This was asked in 2022. There will be building staff, so it's not
Okay.
going to be tenants. It
Perfect.
will not be tenants. That I know we answered.
Great. All right, and the last question was about curb cuts.
I think that had to do with garbage access being requested on Chapman Street by some of the neighbors when it was previously shown on Pine Street.
Okay,
Curb cuts were not allowed on Chapman Street per DOT, so we brought it inside and, made I think the best compromise we could.
All right. So in your proposal, there really are no curb cuts, right? Other than at the crosswalk?
Not for the building, no.
For the building. Okay. Chris?
Not for the applicant, but just because I'd like to be educated. Tito, New York State DOT, this is a city street. How is New York State DOT is getting curb cut rules and regs? Can you
They-
educate me?
There are some roads that are under their jurisdiction, and Chapman happens to be one of them. I'm not sure why, but Chapman is a state controlled road.
Just want to make sure I understand. So the additional parking, anytime somebody's coming and going from this building, it looks like they're gonna have to walk past 5 or 6 residences to get to and from the building from those lots.
For the parking to the east, yes. Isn't that, yeah, it's probably about 4 or 5 houses.
Okay.
All right. And I think, what's the distance that's allowed if parking's within 500 feet? It can
I think
count
it's
towards your project?
250. I have that noted on
250.
the site plan. That's the old.
It's 250 for residential uses.
There you go, 250. So,
So I
Perfect.
think the original 10 spaces closer to Dorenzo's, those were at like 270, but we did get a variance for that, if I remember
Okay.
correctly. Yeah, we got an area variance for that.
all right.
The larger lot that we added is within 250 feet.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. Seeing no other comments. At our last meeting, we determined that this was a unlisted action for seeker review, so I'll make a motion for a negative declaration for seeker review based on the following. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? No or small impact. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No or small impact. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No or small impact. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkways? No or small impact. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No or small impact. Will the proposed action impact existing private or public water supplies or public or private wastewater treatment utilities? No or small impact. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No or small impact. Will the proposed action result in the adverse change to natural resources? No or small impact. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No or small impact. And will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No or small impact. So based on those items, I'll make a motion for a negative declaration for seeker review. Seconded by Manny, all in favor? All right, that's 5 in favor, 0 opposed. And I'll make a motion that the requirements for site plan modification have been met. Seconded by Manny.
Did you want to include the fence at the southern property line of the parking area as a condition of approval?
Yes, I'll make a conditional approval that requirements for site plan modification have been met. Conditional on that the privacy fence that the applicant agreed to at the beginning of his description is installed, that the parcels are combined as he indicated, and that a urban runoff reduction plan is submitted and approved by the city. All right, seconded by Manny, all in favor? All right, that's 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. Have a
All
good night.
Good luck.
Thanks.
All right. Our next public hearing, oh, for the record, Mario is returning. Our next public hearing is for the applicant Pritchard Development Corp. The project address is 113 Bevere Street, and this is a site plan review for the establishment of a vehicle repair service business, towing service in the I-3 Heavy Industrial Zoning District. I will again recuse myself because I am working on a project with the applicant currently, and I would not be impartial. Chris, you got your computer?
Okay. So as Nick said, this is the site for 113 Bevere Street, the applicant Pritchard Development Corp. Welcome, folks.
Good evening.
Why don't we start by letting you provide any kind of updates from when you guys were before us last month.
Okay, I'm Brett Pritchard from Pritchard Development Corp., 618 Conklin Ave.
I'm Brian Winters with Pritchard Development Corp.
So first off, we addressed the slats in the fence for privacy. So we've included those now in the plan. You guys requested a 5-foot landscape buffer on the west side of the property. So they've added that as well. We've added trees on the front of the property on the Bevere Street side. They removed the parking spaces that were on the front of the property, but we left the landscape there just to add some aesthetic value and keep some of that landscaped in. And we removed those 5 parking spaces that were on the front.
Before we open the public hearing, are there any questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
So on the revised plans, the rear setback is 5 feet. Do we need a variance, Tito?
They do need a variance. If the planning commission thinks it's appropriate, you could vote on the site plan subject to the variance being approved. They're on the agenda for next Tuesday's zoning board meeting.
Any other questions before we open the public hearing? Okay. Brett, I'll have you folks step away from the microphone for maybe not very long. So this is the public hearing for 113 Bevere Street. The applicant is the Pritchard Development Corporation. I would ask that if there's anybody here who'd like to speak on this project, please step forward. Tito, while we're waiting for the Army people to come down from the gallery, have we received any official communications?
We have not.
Okay. All right, I'm not seeing a huge crowd. So going once, going twice, gone. Come back, guys. We'll officially close the public hearing at 5:55. Okay. Anything else at this point? Tim, I see you reaching for a microphone. Oh, okay. All right. So this is a Tito. I don't run these very often. So this is a what thing under seeker?
Unlisted.
Unlisted action under seeker. So I'll make a motion to declare this an unlisted action under seeker. And I'll see a second from my friend. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes 5-0. And then now a vote for the approval of the site plan review. Oh, wait, no. Oh, so like a negative declaration. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay. So I'll make a motion for there to be a negative declaration for this unlisted action under seeker under the following criteria. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? No or small impact. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of the use of land? No or small impact. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No or small impact. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that are caused by the establishment of a critical environmental area? No or small impact. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affecting existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkways? No or small impact. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No or small impact. Will the proposed action impact existing private and public water supplies or private and public wastewater treatment utilities? Whew, that's a tongue twister. No or small impact. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No or small impact. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No or small impact. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No or small impact. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No or small impact. Do I see a second on any of all that? Tim, thank you. All those in favor of that long-winded negative declaration, I'll say aye. 5 in favor. Any opposed? 5-0. Now I'll make one more motion to approve the site plan, subject to approval of the variance of the upcoming zoning board right? Zoning board. Do I see a second for that? I'll get Manny. I saw his hand go up. All right. All those in favor of that motion for conditional approval based on zoning board approval? And we got 5-0 as well. Okay. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks
Okay.
very much.
And with that, we'll allow Nick to come back up as we get ready for our final public hearing of the night. This will be A3 Binghamton LLC with a project address of 13 Ayers Street.
Thank you, Chris. Fantastically executed. All right, welcome back. 13 Aries Street, site plan review and special use permit to convert an existing residential building into congregate living facility with 7 sleeping rooms in the R3 residential multi-unit dwelling district. Welcome back.
Thank you. My name's Mike Major Engineering. So not much has changed from what you've seen already regarding the site plan. We basically fit as many parking spaces within the existing lot as we could without obstructing the neighbor's access to their garage and driveway. We've also tried to fit some snow storage in the site as well. And then regarding the floor plan, number of bedrooms, effectively what Amicus is trying to do is get this on the books, if you will. They bought the home with the current number of bedrooms that it has now. So there's no proposal to add or delete any bedrooms. What you're looking at there is essentially like an existing floor plan for the home.
All right. Any questions, comments before Chris have at it?
Yeah, going back to the discussion we had last month on this. So looking at the floor plan, the second floor in the, I'm going to call it the lower, I don't know if there's a
It's
cardinal-
labeled office, right?
Yes, the office. So, I don't know how my fellow commissioners feel. I am nothing against our current applicant, but the idea that once we approve these things, these things are grandfathered in forever. I would like to see a conditional approval, but having that office and that bedroom, having that wall and that door removed, because that will discourage yes, I know people are gonna lecture me that, you can throw up a wall in about 20 minutes, but I still think we should do everything we can as a planning commission to discourage super secret 20th bedrooms being established and make that as difficult as possible on future property owners. That they have to come back here for, approval for a 20th bedroom in that room, in that corner.
Okay. Would it be okay to just take out the door completely, or do you want the walls completely out so that they're in line with the, let's say, the outer wall of the house and the outer wall of the stair there?
My vision would be remove that entire interior wall between that bedroom and that office. Just make it a big open concept, if you will.
So it's not
Okay.
just like a threshold with slots to put new screws
Correct.
in.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
No drywall, no studs,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Smooth wall.
smooth wall.
All right. Is everyone amenable to that? Everyone agree, or,
I'm okay with that.
okay, Manny's okay? Everyone else? How does the applicant feel about that?
Yeah, I can talk to the owner about it. We'd have to look to see if that's a load bearing wall, if it's supporting the roof at all. I know they weren't super receptive to that, taking the whole wall out. I think they kind of felt like they're being held to what the previous owner did or didn't do. I think they might have a little hesitation there. Is it possible to maybe try to meet in the middle, remove that door?
I completely respect the applicant's, perspective on that, but I think this kind of comes with purchasing a property. You are beholden to what the previous owner had kind of set up.
And my approach is it's not necessarily a reflection on the current owner. It's the fact that once we approve the site plan, the current owner sells this property in 5 or 10 years. We got to make sure a future nefarious owner has their hands tied as much as possible.
Right. If we were to call that, well, call it a walk-in closet, but it's just tough to see how that would be used as a bedroom in the future, without modifying the floor plan pretty substantially, because otherwise you're traveling through that bedroom to get into that office area.
College kids will be college kids. I'm sure, if you give enough beer, they'll walk through anything at some point.
All right, well, let's do this. Let's open the public hearing. We'll see if anybody's here to speak about the project, and then we'll come back to this. You probably don't have to move. You're probably okay. All right, so this is the public hearing for the applicant A3 Binghamton LLC. The project address is 13 Aries Street. This is a site plan review and special use permit to convert an existing residential building into a congregate living facility with 7 sleeping rooms in the R3 residential multi-unit dwelling district. If there's anybody who would like to speak about the project, please come to the microphone. And did we receive any letters about this one? No letters. All right. And seeing nobody approaching the microphone, we will close the public hearing. All right, so it sounds like the only sticking point is the door. Well, I'm just weighing the options, so we could go.
Like running through like your whole library of like mental memories from watching too much HGTV to find a solution.
Sorry, I'm just running through the options. So we could just put it up to vote as is and just see where that lands. We don't need a super majority for this, so it could theoretically, it could be a 4-2 vote. Does everybody want to do it that way? Just see what happens?
So as is, not removing the wall at all.
Yeah, just
Alright.
as is with the plans, as is. All right, let's do that. So
Or could we do just removing the door versus removing the entire wall?
Is that that's a good compromise? Would that compromise be acceptable? So it'd still be an opening, but there would be no door in there.
Not good enough for me.
No,
Like,
okay, so
frankly,
that's
I'm
not, so it's either all or nothing, I
guess-
think.
Yeah, as an engineer myself, I can sympathize with the concerns because there's also, you have to tie in the floor if you do that.
Yeah.
If there's any outlets, you have to pull that wire all the way back to the panel. And it can, I understand that it can be
Yeah,
costly, so. And,
all right,
and very cost prohibitive sometimes, so.
okay. Tito, just to make sure before we vote, this doesn't need a super majority or anything, it's just a majority? Okay. Simple majority.
I just had a quick question. Is that particular wall load bearing? And would that implicate whether?
Yeah, that's something we'd have to get up in the attic and verify.
Yeah. All right, well, let's do this. At the last meeting, we decided that this was a type 2 action under seeker and no other environmental review was required. So I'll make a motion that the requirements for site plan review and special use permit have been met. As the plans have been submitted. All right, is there a second? Second by Manny. All in favor of that? All right,
Is this with the door removed or no?
oh no, this is the full review, so no seeker, so. Yes, so this would be the plans with the door still the way that he's got it shown on the plans, so not removing the door.
I retract my second.
All right, so Manny will revote. So, okay, so is there a second? To the motion, the plans, approving the plans as they were submitted with no revisions. All right, so there is no second for that. All right, so it looks like most likely the wall is gonna have to come out if you want this to get approved. Do you want us to vote that way?
Well, so wouldn't the next step be the door and the door frame?
Sorry, what's that?
I think our next step was the door and the door frame, right? That was the intermediate.
Oh,
option.
just leave the door or leave the frame, but take out the door.
Yeah, option 2 would be take the door and door
So
frame
you-
out. Option 3 is no wall at all.
Your first option, it implied that the door was still in there and as is and everything.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. It was.
So then I was saying option 2 would be, you take the door frame, you take the jamb out, you take the frame out and.
But those little sidewalls could stay.
Right. I'm just
Okay.
thinking if you take the frame out, then it's a lot more work. You have to
Okay.
put a door frame in to add a door and it's not just, buying $100 door and slapping the hinges on. So if you pull the frame out, it makes it a little harder.
Gotcha.
And the jamb, yeah.
All right. So the second option is full removal of door and door frame. And you're amenable to that? Okay. All right. So I'll make a different motion that the requirements for site plan review and special use permit have been met contingent on the applicant revise the plan to show the door going into the office is completely removed and the frame for the door is also removed. So it just looks like an opening in a wall. All right, is there a second for that option? All right, Kyle, the seconds that option. All in favor? All right, that's 3 in favor. All opposed? All right, that's 3 opposed. All right, so that one ties. You're getting closer.
Contentious.
All right. So the third option, if the applicant is amenable to it, would be full removal of the wall so that you can't put a door back easily.
Yeah, I mean,
Provided-
I'll talk to the owner, but if they have no other option.
It's looking like,
Nick,
Oh.
let me just ask a question of Tito and Ryan before you make any motions.
sure.
So if we approve a site plan with conditions that the applicant finds unwelcome or distasteful, what happens to the current building and what they can or can't do with it? Their building is they can't run into anybody? Like, I just want to make sure we know what we're doing before we make this third motion.
So they would.
What is the
not-
current status of this building on Ayers Street?
I believe it's legally, it's a 4-bedroom, single-family house. So they would have to revert to that, or they would have to apply for site plan modification and try to convince you to change your mind on the floor plan, or present an alternative and then try to get that approved for 7 bedrooms.
Okay. Okay, just want to make sure we know what we're doing before we jump off this bridge, I guess. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think if the only option is to remove that wall versus going back to a 4-bedroom, I think it's pretty obvious what conversation I need to have.
All right, we'll try again. I'll make a motion that the requirements for site plan review and special use permit have been met contingent on the floor plan being revised to completely remove the door and walls between the second floor bedroom and the office.
Second,
All right, second by Manny, all in favor?
provided that they're not load bearing.
Provided, if they're load bearing, you could put a beam in, right?
Yeah.
I think we'll just go straight across and just say, yeah, they gotta come out. All right, second by Manny, all in favor? All right, that's 6 in favor, 0 opposed. All right, so that's it. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good evening.
All right. All right, that concludes seeker determinations. Or sorry, public hearings and final deliberations. Anybody have any other business? All right, I have one code question. That convenience store that's on the corner of Floral and Main Street. We had them put barriers up so cars couldn't park. I think they've moved a couple of the barriers because I see cars are parked in front of the store and not in that side parking lot quite a bit. And I've watched as somebody almost pulled out onto Main Street in front of traffic and an oncoming car.
Is there a curb here? I don't remember.
That whole curb cut is
Yeah.
down,
Yeah.
yeah. So you can easily pull in and out. But I think they moved something because I think we approved that they couldn't park all the way in front of that building, so. There were some there I think they were there all the way for the entire length of the building previously, and it looks like some have moved, so. Okay, thank you. Not to make more work for you, but I just think they're not in compliance anymore, so. All right. Anything else? Motion to adjourn? All right. Second by Kyle, all in favor? Second by Tim? You guys share a microphone, so it's it's hard to tell where it's coming from. All right, 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Oh, sorry, Mario, are you objecting to adjourning? All right, 5 in favor, 1 opposed.
Was that Kyle and Kyle made who made the motion?
I did.
Oh, you did, okay. I'm taking minutes via text here. Because the camera froze like 8 minutes ago, again, yeah. 6:15. And it's 6:15 PM. Nick,